Welcome to Oslo, or Oslo as they would pronounce it if we were allowed. This is the new Kia e-Niro. It is a totally ground up new car with a totally new nose. The charging port is now here, which is interesting from Kia, because on the plug-in hybrid version of this car, it's over just at the side of the vehicle. We're just under 65 kilowatt hour usable battery, which is no massive change from the previous generation of the car. We don't have pricing just yet either. If I'm guessing, and it is a total guess, I'm thinking early 40s after grant. There'll probably be 2 or 3 specs from Kia offered in Ireland. Generally they go for maybe K3 or a GT line, something like that. I think the darker colours, we'll take a look at the dark colour in a minute, does suit the car a little bit better, just in terms of this kind of grey overhang over the wheel arches, on the pillar back here in the car as well. It's quite noticeable. The only thing, because these are pre-production prototypes, a little bit of camouflage going on the rear bumper, but you still do get a fairly good idea of what the car is going to look like. In terms of boot space, it's electric. We do have an area for storing cables and everything under here, so that's good news. Your Kia charging cables are still here, and there's a bit of a tire compressor. You're not actually getting a spare tire to change. The boot space does kind of feel like it's ID3 type territory. Flexible boot cover, actually feels quite flimsy actually, but it does offer lots of flexibility if you're carrying kids and all their stuff. Hello and welcome to the inside of the all-new Kia e-Niro, which is going to build on what was a pretty successful car for Kia, and long before they had something called an EV6, they had an e-Niro. And I suppose the pressure on this car is in 2 senses. One, it comes from the previous e-Niro, because that was pretty good. And 2, with the EV6, it's got a lot to match. So we're just over a 64 kilowatt hour battery that's usable at range, not quite 500 kilometers, but not far off it. Fuel economy or energy consumption, we're looking at about 17 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. We are at 11 degrees here in Norway this morning. So not the worst of EV desirable conditions. It's dry. There is plenty of power as soon as you plant it. It does handle quite well for, again, a heavy electric car. Steering has a little bit of feedback in it. A little bit. You're going to be able to tow 750 kilos in this electric version of the car. It's about 1250 in the plug-in hybrid. The non-plug-in version will not be coming to Ireland. So if you've had a look around on videos or in person at the EV6, it will feel very familiar inside this car. They've borrowed a lot of the screen, they've borrowed a lot of the colours, they've borrowed the same steering wheel. We haven't got prices as we're filming this car today. I'd imagine with the EV6, the versions that we get in Ireland starting at 50 after grants, this car is, I'd imagine, going to be low 40s. I don't see, a 15 grand difference. It's just, and even the previous e-Niro, it was in and kind of around that money. Compared to our Irish roads, even these mountainy secondary roads, I don't think we've encountered a pothole yet. And the bends are a little bit blind, a little bit tight. But in terms of ride quality, it's hard to gauge what it'll be like on cars at home, because these are very, very smooth roads. So in these conditions, it's a very smooth kind of drive. Our real world range, by the way, is about 400 kilometers on what was a full battery when we set off today. So they're the kind of real world conditions. And actually, since I've been driving, a certain Bob Flavin was driving before me, we have dropped to 16 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So maybe actually it is possible to get that fuel economy to improve a little bit. So in many ways, it's probably not as engaging to drive as the EV6. That car, I think, exceeds a lot of people's expectations. It's quite an engaged car to drive, a lot of power as soon as you put the boot down. So this is like a more chilled version in many ways of an EV6, but not quite an EV6. I've actually just found a new use for these funky looking headrests. You can just help yourself get in and out of the car like that if you need to. The seats, they are low down, but when they are low down, you've very little space for your feet, but we've got a decent amount of knee room, depending again on the height of your driver. In terms of space for the back of your thighs, there's quite a big gap here. So this seat will definitely suit kids, but adults on longer journeys, once you can get that seat forward, you might be okay. Glass roof in the front, but it doesn't extend into the back of the car. Your head space is about that. These versions of the cars will probably get USB-C, I'd imagine, or maybe just a USB at the back, but there is a plug here. They're in the side of the seats. I like that. I think the EV6 was the first car that they did that in. So not as much room as the back of an EV6, there is no doubt. And yeah, can you adjust the, normally in Kias you can adjust, oh, we've got another plug over here, interesting. Okay, but the seat back that's normally adjustable for passengers doesn't seem to be here. So enough space depending on how big you are. Up front, when you open the door, your seat will readjust to whatever you have saved it in the memory setting. This center console panel is identical to the EV6. You've got wireless charging, you've got USB, you've got USB-C. The same idea for the center screen. It wraps just kind of one piece into the driver's speedo. Same steering wheel. As I just keep saying, it's like an EV6 Lite. In the EV version, Kia will be offering K4 in that spec. You'll get K3 and K4 if you go for the plug-in hybrid version of the Niro. That range is about 60 kilometers. This front piece, or this centerpiece, doesn't adjust like it does in certain other cars, and you'd still got loads of space, like this drinks holders, stuff to chuck a phone in. I do really like this center idea. It's not a physical button. You have two knobs on either side, but you do have the shortcuts, and if you flick that button, then you get your aircon and you flick it back again. I find it a little bit easier to use than the system that you get in Hyundai, for example. One thing that is definitely an improvement over the previous e-Niro, the roads are dry, but the torque steer in the e-Niro, and particularly in the wet, it was quite hard to get the grip down. So I'd imagine, I'm not testing it in the exact same comparable conditions as I did in Ireland, but I'd imagine that was a thing that they tried to iron out, because even sitting on good tyres, any sort of a greasy road, you were just a little bit struggling to get the power down from initial takeaways and start-offs and stuff like that. Actually on kind of bumpier conditions here now, which is perfect, because I thought the conditions were going to be just perfectly smooth. We found potholes. There's a big one there, and actually it handles it pretty well. There's no harsh kind of thuds, not kind of that bone-shaking, teeth clattering thud that you sometimes get. So it actually handled that little bumpy road quite well. Following our lead. Now here's a bit of gravel, foot down, and still handle it pretty well, but you could just feel the grip just starting to go. I mean, how often are you driving on gravelly, sandy roads? But just, I think for context compared to the previous e-Niro, it's relevant. It really does feel like Kia they're just doing EVs very well. They've got their, I mean, if you were to say 15 years ago, as we were chatting before we took the cars out today, that Korean brands are going to be dominating the Irish market in 2022 with massive market share, people would have said what? And now here we are with, you know, really great options as EVs, good charging speeds, decent range, very reliable range as well. Generally, my experience of Kia is if they say the range is this, you're not going to be a million miles away from it. And I think obviously a lot of the EV6 interior is now in this car, so it will feel like a step up compared to the previous. But I think someone who's maybe getting into an e-Niro for the first time will be very impressed, and equally people who were early adopters and had the last generation e-Niro they'll feel like they're getting an upgrade if they are going to change and throw a bit more money again at another EV. So I think EV6 with just a little less fuss on the outside, a little less fuss on the inside, but still a very capable, enjoyable to drive car and well kitted out, and something that will make you very happy if you're thinking about getting into an electric e-Niro. So thank you for joining me today on this first look video here in Oslo of the e-Niro and the Niro plug-in hybrid. Again, the HEV won't be coming to Ireland, so you'll need to get this plug-in version. There'll be a K3 one just under 40,000 euro. The K4 version of the plug-in hybrid will be north of 40, I'd say low 40s. Again, this will do a range of about 60 kilometers, but you have to plug it in every day, and it'll do about 2.5 litres per 100 kilometers if you do that. And then the K4 version, which will be the only option for the moment in the e-Niro here in Ireland, it can't go past 50, because if it does, it just makes no sense. People will go for the EV6. So where is that car going to be? Will it be 47? Will it be 46? If a K4 version of the plug-in hybrid is, look, it's all guesswork. The prices will be revealed soon. This one we drove quite a bit on the motorway to get here today. Quite a bit of noise. You definitely notice that the battery EV version of it is a lot quieter. Quite a bit of road noise, particularly over sort of 80 kilometers an hour. Some great features in the cars though, like when you're in your cruise control and you go through a speed camera area, or just from the traffic sign recognition, it will start to beep just to warn you that you're going over the limit, just to hold on to your license and keep it clean and all that stuff. Look, Kia know what they're doing when it comes to either battery assisted or full electric vehicles. It's been great to have a look at the cars today. These are pre-production. They don't really feel like it though. So everything in them pretty much seem to work, and especially software, and other people should take notice of that. It just seems to work. Anyway, any comments, questions, thoughts, whatever you got for us, please leave it in the comment section. Please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. I'm going to be doing a video just about charging in Norway with Bob Flavin, so keep an eye out for that on this channel and on Bob's channel as well. Just how they've got to where they are in 2022 as regards infrastructure, grants, incentives. How have they convinced almost 20% of every new car sold in Norway in 2022 to be an electric one? So keep an eye out for that. Thank you very much for watching.